Hello. Welcome to Multi-Unit Mastery Monday. In this special session that we have every Monday to give you tips and information and best practices so that it can help you in your business. Today is part 6, I believe it's part 6 of the Multi-Unit Franchising Conference. This is the last part of our mini series, which is basically a summary of all the things that we learned and visited during the franchising conference in Las Vegas earlier this year. We have been sharing with you all of the sessions and the summary of what we learned and saw in that time, so that if you whether you went there and maybe didn't make enough notes or forgot about everything that you learned, here is a little reminder of all the things that were shared. Or if you didn't get a chance to attend, then you get to see the inside of what happened, at least in the sessions that I attended. And I'm sharing with you this last 5 weeks. And today is the 6th week and last session. My name is Aisha Bascaro. For those of you that are watching me for the first time, I am the founder and CEO of the American Franchise Academy, where we focus ourselves in giving you knowledge, tools, and resources to be successful with your franchise business. Today's session was not the last session, but it was in the last day. But I decided to leave it as the closing for this series because it is a very important one, and this is one that I am going to ask you to really truly consider to act upon. Okay, and so this session is on succession planning. And I know we talk about succession planning and how we need to figure out who the next leader is in the organization and how to make that plan and the bench planning, etc. But this is different. This is about who is going to take over your business when you're no longer here, or when you are wanting to just take a break and enjoy the fruits of your hard work and labor for years and years. A very important session for you as a business owner, for you as a leader of your family, and and your business and your legacy. And I decided to leave this last because, like I said, it is one that I really truly believe that all business owners need to act upon and start thinking and taking the steps to be able to make this succession planning in your business. And the reason is because it is for more than beyond just taking care of your business. The importance of succession planning has two specific focuses. And the first one is to protect your legacy from governmental control. So if you want to make sure that you have a say of where your business, where your legacy goes, and not have the government decide for you, this is something that you need to start working on right now. That's one. And the second reason why this is so important is because you want to protect your family from the potential legacy impact once you're not around. And what I mean by that is, throughout my career, which now is 30 plus years, I have seen too many families get hurt and sometimes even destroyed, the unity and the love that had them together, because the person, the in charge, the hierarchy, leader did not do the succession planning required so that the family was not only taken care of, but taken care of in a loving, caring way. And so that is why you want to do and take the actions on this succession planning for your business, because you want to be able to protect your legacy from governmental control, and you want to protect your family from the legacy potential negative impact. Okay. So in this session, there were 4 franchisees that were presenting, or they were being interviewed and sharing their thoughts, plus a facilitator, and they're all multi-unit, multi-brand franchisees that share the best practices. And I thought it was fantastic to be able to be there and hear from the first line perspective of what it was like. Now, something interesting was that 3 of those participants were business owners that have been doing it for a long time, already taking the steps for that succession planning. And one of the people on the stage was somebody that was the recipient of that legacy, right? Of that succession planning. And so I love the fact that we had that balance on it. And it will be interesting to see the difference on recommendations. So let's go ahead and get started. The first person, and by the way, I just grouped all of their best practice sharing underneath each person so that we could go from person to person rather than topic to topic. So the first one was Fred Burgess, who is a multi-unit, multi-brand franchisee for Marriott hotels, Papa John's, and Twin Peaks franchises. And he started the session mentioning something about a movie called Tommy Boy. And to be honest, I have never seen the movie Tommy Boy, but I actually Googled it and looked at a trailer and it was not pretty. And so he said, if you don't want to see yourself in a Tommy Boy, situation, you got to plan your succession planning for your business. And one of the things that he recommended is that you need to look at your life insurance and make sure that the coverage that is in it is enough for you to have, your family to have the financial wherewithal to be able to arrange and make all the plans that you need for your business, not just for the person that is no longer there, but all the things that are needed for the business in general. He also mentioned that it is important that you value your business every year, that you define what is the value, because the value of your business will change, especially if you're growing and opening more units and acquiring more businesses, right? It will change year over year. And so it is important that you understand what is the value of your business so that, you need to be able to, based on that, see if you need to make changes in any plans that you have for your business. And he said, I urge you to not put off this decision. And literally he says, don't leave that mess to your family, because people that do not know your business as intimately as you do, it will be very difficult for them to make the best decisions for them and their business. And so if the more that you do and you take care of ahead of time, the less impactful it's going to be on them. And he says you got to do wills and trust, and do it with the right people. And so I'm going to go a little bit more in detail on this later on. But I will say that from him, his main message that I take from him is that you got to value your business every year because it changes. And based on that, you may need to make changes to your succession planning. Then the next presenter in this stage was Jeffrey Toos, and he is a multi-unit, multi-brand franchisee for Bright Care and Bright Star Senior Living. And he said that, you need to start now, that you need to actually, the succession planning should start the moment that you open your business. Not as you mature, not as you halfway through, but the moment that you open your business, you need to start your succession planning because you just never know, what's going to happen. We know in the last 18 months that life can be here and be gone in a matter of hours, days, weeks, right? We don't know what's going to happen to us. And so the moment that we have a business that requires protection from the government and protection for your family is the moment that you need to start the succession planning. And so that's something that he mentioned. He also said that they do a lot of bonuses and incentives for their general managers based on profitability. They spend a lot of the time working on the leaders, from the unit leaders and above, to understand the business and the profit of the business, so that if in the case that somebody else needs to take over the organization, that the team itself is able to sustain that profitability because they know how to do it, how to run it, and how to continue the profitability even if they were not there as leaders. He actually wants his son to run his company, but it may or may not happen. Is giving him the time to decide if this is what they want to do. And in the meantime, one of the things that he actually recommends, which is I think the biggest takeaway from Jeffrey, is that he actually takes, travels and gets away from the business to enjoy quiet, thinking time, analyze the business, and think what can be done better. And he says that he finds that a lot of franchisees and enterprise business owners don't take enough time off away from the business to really take a look at the business from a distance to be able to decide and plan what can be done better for their business, and what would be the best, line for that succession planning. And so that is his biggest recommendation on this. Number one, actually start planning the moment that you open your first business and continue to have a plan in place all the way through. And second, take the time away from your business, quiet time, prolonged time, not just 2 or 3 days, but a week, 2 weeks, to really think through everything about your company, and then be able to come clean and fresh and make better decisions for it and its future. Then comes the next presenter in the platform was Eric Denver, and he is a Hand and Stone multi-unit franchisee, Hand and Stone massage spa multi-unit franchisee, and he says that for him, his children are very much involved with the business. And he says that the most challenging thing for him is to be able to wear, the boss hat and the father and the dad hat. And so it is a balance game. And he really obviously treasures the time and love between him and his children. And, for him, that's obviously the most important thing. And so that balance that you had to do is something that, you've got to work through as you're going in this process. He recommended, again, insurance, and he mentioned key man insurance policy. I know that Fred mentioned insurance policy, but he reminded everybody that it's not just any insurance policy, but key man insurance policy, which is different, because you have an insurance policy for your business and maybe for your personal, for your own personal use. But if you are the key man or meaning the main person, because you could be a key woman of the organization, then it's a different type of insurance that has different coverage and different support. And so whenever you're looking at your insurance package and the things that you need to have in place to protect your business, make sure that you ask for key man insurance policy and what the coverage is, so that you can have the right amount of coverage for your business. Him, the same way as Jeffrey, he's saying that they share PNLs and teach their people how to run the business. They are completely transparent. They're unit managers, supervisors, everybody understands. They read the PNLs. They know exactly the position of the business. And he said it's interesting because that was 2 franchisees that mentioned the same thing. Sharing that information, because there is no negative to them, to it from their perspective. They want their people to be able to understand business. They want their people to understand how to run it, so that if at any point in time they are not there, and again, somebody else takes over the leadership, aka their children, then the business will run, because the people in that organization already know how to make the business profitable and run properly. Something else that he said that is a really very important key, he says you should build your organization, your enterprise, to sell it. Now, you may not selling it, but you should always think of it, because there is no guarantee that your kids are going to want to take over your business. So when you're building your business, when you're building your enterprise, build it with the thought process of eventually at some point in time potentially selling it. And he says you need to think that you need to build it to the point that it is attractive to a private equity firm. And he said he recommended ideally it has to be over $10 million. And so I thought that was very interesting. I agree with him 100%. Anytime we build a company, if it's something that we know or think that when we are no longer there and running it, that we're willing to just give it up, then that's okay. But if we want to have something that we could eventually sell so that we can enjoy the fruits of that business, or packages for our children to take over, then we got to build the company, the organization, the structure, the systems to be able to sell it. And so the decisions that you make when you are building a company for you to keep it forever versus building a company to eventually sell it are going to be potentially different decisions in different areas. And so I want to take a little pause in here. And I agree so much with him that I actually at some point in time bought this book called Build to Sell from John Warrilow. If you are a franchisee, if you have an enterprise that you want to grow and eventually be able to pass it on or potentially sell it, then you might want to read this book. It's a really short read, and I find it very interesting on the concepts that makes you start thinking, okay, how do I make decisions so that I can build an organization that if I want to, I could sell it, right? And so I think he's right on that. And he just added that you want to sell it in a way that is attractive to private equity. And his recommendation needs to be over $10 million worth. So, one of the things that I always say is one franchise unit is a job, right? Multi-unit organization is now an enterprise. And that multi-unit organization is what's going to get you to having a business that is sellable, that then private equity will be attracted to. And he's giving you a target of 10 million. So when you're thinking about growing, when you go from 1 unit to 2 units, it's a little challenging. When you go to 3 units, it's even more challenging, right? And so really, you don't hit the sweet spot until the moment that you have enough units that you can actually hire a district manager to now delegate operations to. And normally, depending on the brand, of course, getting to that district manager level, that means that you are nearby that 10 million, that 10 million target, right? And so from then on, you have to decide, do I want to keep growing and then go into the multi-district manager areas? But that's a whole other direction. Actually, I'm going to put a link below this video once we're done, with a link to, how many, how should you grow? Should you multi-unit, multi-brand? And when do you bring a district manager to your organization? Because that's a very important decision when you want to decide, when you want to grow, how much do you want to grow, right? And so here, one of the things that very interesting, a category or a characteristic that he's saying, you got to grow your business to at least, if you're going to go beyond 1, you should go at least to the point that a private equity will find it interesting. And that will be a $10 million. All right, moving on. He also talked about splitting the entities in a way that they are sellable as a package. So if you are a multi-unit franchisee, the entities will be based on brands, because if a private equity is looking to buy something, more than likely, if you are a multi-brand franchisee, they may not be interested in both brands that you have, right? But then if you had to make all the investment to split the entities and all the legal fees for all of that, why not from the get-go separate the entities based on the way that they will be attracted to be purchased? Hence, one brand per entity, and separate it that way, so that you can literally sell one brand package and another brand package, and that will still be attractive to somebody in the private equity world, right? And so very interesting. So it says, if you are too large or too spread, there may be no buyers. Meaning that if you are with a brand and you're way too big in that brand, then you may not be able to find a buyer that is interested in buying that whole thing. And especially if you have a lot of units and they're spread in multi-state without a proper infrastructure to be able to be sold separately, then that will be hard to sell. So when he's saying build your organization in a way that will be attractive for a buyer, you got to take into consideration, how many units you're going to get per brand, where they're going to be located. Will one entity want to have that package? And so, one of the things that we talk with our clients when they're growing, as far as where to grow, how far to grow, how many to grow, in alignment, it's one of the things that we talk about and, coach them on. But now we have the added of, okay, now you need to consider not only all these things that we share and teach you, but also, is this something that is a sellable business, right? That somebody will be attracted to, which is, I think that the things that we teach in that decision actually completely aligns together. Something else is, he has done it in a way that his kids are very involved in the business. And he said one of the secrets or the reasons that he has been able to achieve that in their interest is because they have been involved in the business from the get-go, and they started from the very bottom, and they have, moved up and worked through all the infrastructure and the ranks in the organization. And not only has that given them the knowledge, the experience, the relationships, but also the ability to eventually lead the organization in a way that they know what they're talking about because they have personally experienced it. Now he's lucky because he has, kids that were actually interested and stay with it. And so that has been positive for him. And one of the things that he also recommends is have people between you as a father or mother and your children, because then that way they can learn from other people and not necessarily yourself. So they can be their leaders, their coaches, their teachers, but you can remain a parent, even though they are in your organization. So that's one of the things that he talked about, right? Very important to keep somebody between you and them so that they can actually be employees in the organization and you can remain a parent. Very, very important for him. And I am sure it's very important for you that even though your children may be involved in your business, you still want to keep the family and the love between you in a way that is separate from the business. All right. So those are the three franchisees that were on the stage that were sharing the best practices, which then brings me to the fourth franchisee who he was actually a recipient of a succession plan from his father. And was really, really great perspective from him is that he did not take over the McDonald's, which by the way, this is a multi-unit McDonald's franchise, right off the bat. As a matter of fact, one of the things that he did way before he was able to receive the McDonald's was that he actually got into franchising on his own in a different brand, which is Ace Hardware. And going through the experience of acquiring that franchise and running it, it really gave him a lot of knowledge and experience before he then took over the McDonald's organization from his parents. And one of the things he said was, don't lock your children into one business. He said there is a lot of value that from you allowing or encouraging your kids to maybe get another franchise on their own so that they can see for themselves what that whole process was. For him, he says it was key to be able to not only understand how everything worked, but also value what he was receiving from his parents. And he also said, consider that maybe an employee could be a successor, right? Let's say that if he decided that he did not want to take over that enterprise, why not have an employee lead that organization, right? And then be the one to take over so that the kids can actually do something else. Anyway, so he said that he's a young man, and he has a daughter that's 5 years old, and he says he would love for her to take over eventually in the business. And the same as with Eric, one of the things that he learned from his parents, he says, my work ethic completely came from my parents. They had McDonald's for a long time, many years, and just like Eric, his parents made him work every position in the McDonald's or in their McDonald's organization. And so by running every position allowed him to understand the structure, the systems, the business, from an employee perspective. And that really gave him not only the work ethic, but the understanding of how that business worked. And so to the point that he had to go through the entire McDonald's official franchise training. And all of that gave him the knowledge, the ability to feel comfortable into exploring on his own that own franchise, which is Ace Hardware franchise. And through leading and growing that organization, he learned about service and leadership and how to lead an organization, which prepare him to be able to then take over the McDonald's structure. And he said that his parents exposed him to business and profit and loss statements and financials and the whole top line of the business from a very young age. So not only was he running and positions in the organization, but he was also exposed to the higher level perspective of the business, which so many people are lacking. There are unit leaders that don't even understand how to read a profit and loss statement. There are franchisees that don't even know how to read a profit and loss statement properly. So in his case, his parents exposed him to all of that business aspect from a very young age. Apparently, McDonald's organization has a next generation owners training. And he said that this is something that McDonald's requires anybody that's taking over a parents organization, that taking over the business is not a birthright. Like literally any franchise owner today could lose the ability to pass on the business to their children if the children do not qualify under the McDonald's organization, which I thought was very, very smart of that organization. I did not know that. And I think it's very smart because, of course, the brand has to protect the brand. And the reality is that if an organization, as large as McDonald's and their enterprise was passed on to somebody that was not prepared to lead that organization, that it could not only hurt that legacy that his parents built, but also will hurt the brand and the team underneath it. So very, very smart at McDonald's, and that for them to do that. And so from that perspective, he said, look, find out if your franchisor has any ways for them to support you in that, and on developing the children, the kids in your business, your kids, to prepare them to the next level to take over the franchise. I think that's something that I know a lot of brands have talked about, because as you all know, franchising really became, boom in the late 80s, early 90s, right? In the 80s and early 90s, it exploded. Now we talk about 30 years ago. So if you started when you were 30, that means that you're in your 60s today, right? And so that means that a lot of people are now wanting to retire, if not, on their way. And they, all these, brands should have some sort of a program to help these franchisees, be able to have a succession plan and train and prepare their kids to take over if they haven't done it themselves. So it will behoove the franchisors to do that. And then, of course, we have the presenter or facilitator of the session. And her name is Jessie Kasett, and multi-unit, multi-brand franchisee for Little Scissors, Sports Clips, Oxyfresh Carpet Cleaning Service Company. And one of the things that they said was that something that is key for the success of taking over the business is that the children are actually, uh, uh, that they have gratitude, that they are actually understand the gift of that they will be receiving of a business that has been acquired and grown and developed and matured and being handed over to the next generation. If that gratitude doesn't exist, then you're putting a risk at your organization. And one more of a tactical tip was make sure that you have lease assignment, that there's a lease assignment element to the and to your leases, so that you can transfer the lease to somebody else. Okay, a lot of the times the lease is assigned maybe to a company or to a person. Make sure that the leases are defined in a way that it is transferable to another person. Not only will it be helpful if you decide to sell it, but it will be helpful if in the case that a child will take over the organization. So as you can see, a lot of information, a lot of best practices and tactics. And so I will summarize all of that I heard during that session to 7 key points. Okay. So the first key point that I heard was that you need to make sure that you have key man life insurance, so that you have the coverage that you need for your business, so that the people that are left have the ability to take care of the business and yourself and the family the right way. Number 2, you must have a will that determines what is that you want to happen with your legacy. And you got to create a trust. Oh, I didn't mention the trust, but a couple of people mentioned trust throughout the sessions. Create a trust. A trust protects your legacy from the government. A will only says what it is that you want to happen. It doesn't mean, it still goes to a judge, and the judge still going to decide whether to interpret whatever that will says. If you have a trust, the trust is what protects your legacy from government control. If you have a trust, which is the number 3 point, but then the 4th point is leave clear instructions. So you have a trust with very, very clear instructions of what you want of things to happen, then the government doesn't decide for you. You do. You decide when you do that. Okay. And so, number 5th point is work with the experts that do this every day. Some of them were mentioning, I'm doing this with a lawyer, I'm doing this with an accountant, but they were not experts on succession planning. And believe me, there are, I get that our lawyers that are very knowledgeable and experienced, doesn't mean that they know how to set you for succession, appropriately. And they are accountants that they might be really great at being accountants. So it doesn't mean that they know how to properly plan succession planning. And the experts in succession planning, not only are they looking at your business, your legacy, but they're looking at your family and your personal desires and choices that you want to make for your business that go beyond, numbers and law. And so very, very important that you do that. And so the number 6, which is what we mentioned, that was very smart, build a sellable business, meaning a business that you can eventually sell if you want to. Because if you do that, then you are building it in a way that you can either pass it on to the next generation or sell it and enjoy the fruits of your work. And the 7th point is, as you're doing all these things, review all of these things 1 through 6 every year, or as things change, so that they keep on top of any changes that happen. Apparently, somebody in the stage said, I know somebody that had all these things in place, but they haven't even looked at them in 20 years. And so by the time they pass away, a lot of things have changed. And now all it did is cause chaos and confusion because a lot of the things didn't apply anymore, right? And so if you do this 1 through 6, then if you would then review it, the 7th step, every time, every year, or every time something changes, then all of this will give you peace of mind every day. And then you will ensure, because remember, at the end of the day, it's about protecting your legacy and protecting your family. And if you want to do that, then this is what you have to do to prepare for that. So I hope that you find this interesting. I hope that you find this valuable. I know that this is something that you had already been thinking about, that you know that you have to do. So maybe, hopefully, this gives you the little extra nudge for you to start taking the steps to make this happen for you and your business and your family. Having said that, I would like to thank you for being with me in this multi-unit mastery series of the multi-unit franchising conference. If you haven't seen the other sessions, go to our YouTube channel where they are all saved in there. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, and that way you can see any future videos and information that come after this. And if you are seeing us in all our other live broadcast stations or platforms, give us a thumbs up or hello. And if you have anything that you would like to add to this session, any tips and additional best practices that you'd like to share, we would love to hear all about that. And one more thing is, if you are interested to learn more about what we here at the American Franchise Academy do to help multi-unit franchisees grow into successful enterprise, please visit us at AmericanFranchiseAcademy.com, which is where we are all the time. And we have a page and website that gives you a lot of information. Also, you can go to multiunitsuccess.com and find how we can support you as a multi-unit franchisee or a future multi-unit franchisee into building an enterprise that supports you not only with success for the future, your family, and protects your legacy. All right. Thank you for being with me today. I hope that this was of value, and we'll see you next week on the next Multi-Unit Mastery Monday. We will come back and give you more knowledge. Thank you, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.